Hello, students. Welcome back. I'm your mentor and guide, Brenda, and in this session, we will talk about a topic that has become one of the most essential component of any entrance test, and this one is called the Parajumbles. Now, students, parajumble is a paragraph that essentially jumbled, and you say they give you the paragraph, the jumbled paragraph, and they want you to put this in the right order. Now, first of all, let's understand why is this done. See, they test your logical ability, they check your analytical ability, they check your understanding, and that too, you have to do this in timed, say, environment. So they check a lot of things when they give you a parajumble to arranged in the right order. So these generally appear in almost all entrance tests these days. And today we will understand how to go about dealing with the parajumbles because these look difficult, but trust me, this is one of the easiest topics here which is an important part of your test also. Now, there are three types of parajumbles: open parajumbles, closed parajumbles, and type and answer type parajumbles. Open parajumble, as the name suggests, so you'll have 4 to 5 options, and there will be multiple answer choice options to choose from. So you'll have to work around those to get the answer. Closed parajumble, there will be at least 1 or 2 fixed parts, and you'll have to work around the rest of the parts to get the answer. These will generally be followed by MCQ based answer choices. Then comes the most dreaded of all, type in answer type parajumble. Here, the multiple answer choice options are missing, so you have to work around the jump parajumble, think of the answer, and type it in. Hence the name type in answer type. Now we will take a look at some strategies that will actually help you get the answer right. And trust me, these work 100%. Now let's take a look. Now see, there are only few things that you have to keep in mind when you are working on a question based on parajumbles. First of all, don't try to rearrange the sentences in the parajumble. Instead, start with the answer options. So take a look at the answer choices and determine if this answer choice is a better answer choice than the others. Eliminate them, and probably this one will be your answer. Now we'll understand how this will work. Then look for mandatory pairs. Now, mandatory pair means two sentences that should put together. They follow, maybe one sentence elaborates the meaning of the previous one, or there is something that connects both the sentence and should be put together. So let's say you find a mandatory pair in the parajumble, go to the answer choices, see which one matches best, say which one has the mandatory pair according to you, and eliminate the rest, see if this one is the answer. Then find passage openers or conclusive statements. Now, what does that mean? Now, see, not all statements can be termed as passage openers. Now, for a passage opener to be called a passage opener, it has to have something, maybe a noun to begin with. So, if at all you have two statements, one begins with a noun and the other one has a pronoun in it. Generally speaking, the one with the noun would precede the one which has a pronoun, right? So, the first statement with the noun should ideally be passage opener if I'm talking about just two statements. So try and find the passage opener. Well, it will be a broad general statement or it will have a pronoun in it, a noun in it. Conclusive statements will generally summarize or maybe give you, say, something that will, say, bring the entire discussion to an end. It will have something conclusive in it for it to be called a conclusive statement. Then passage openers are generalized statements. Now see, when you will try to find the passage opener, this is one thing that you have to keep in mind, that a passage opener will be a passage opener. Why? Because it will be a broad general statement. So it will open a thought, it will talk about a thought, and the rest of the statements will only elaborate the first thought further. A paragraph generally doesn't start with this, that, it, or any pronoun for that matter. So, as already discussed, the first statement will be, say, generally begin with a noun, not a pronoun. Well, there can be exception to this rule some at times. Now, I guess let's put these strategies to test by working around some parajumbles. So, let's just start. Now, the first strategy says start with the answer options. So I'll read the parajumble for you. So when you look at a parajumble, read the sentences. Don't try to arrange them. Go to the answer choices. Try and determine what your answer is. Okay, let's just see. So this one says anything can trigger depression, big or small. It usually occurs during drastic times of people's life. After a loss, say death, for example, relationship problems, schools, grades, stress, etc., depression is explained as the deepest crest of sadness. It depends on the person, situation, the event that are happening within a person's life. Now, I've just read the options. I did not try to arrange them at all. Now I'll go to the answer choices and I'll begin from there. Now let's see. The first one says B as a possible passive start. Now let's see. It usually occurs uh, during the drastic times of people's life. Now, I we just discussed that we should not start a paragraph with a pronoun. Now, how relevant is this it here? What does this it signify? We don't know. Not a possible passive start. Safely eliminate. See how easy was that? Now, what if I begin my passage with A? So there are two options that say A can be a possible passage start opener. Let's see. Let's put it to test. Anything can trigger depression, big or small. Well, at least I'm not able to eliminate it. Let's put it on hold. Let's see what will happen if I begin my passage with option D. Now let's see. Depression is explained as the deepest crest of sadness. Well, looks good. So we're talking about a broad general statement. What is depression? It is the deepest crest of sadness. Looks like a good answer choice. Let's see what will happen if I put B after it. Will it say B will B naturally follow D or not? Let's just see. So, depression is explained as the deepest crest of sadness, and it usually occurs during drastic times of people's life. How beautifully put together. So, depression is crest of sadness. It occurs when people are going through drastic times. So, it beautifully elaborates the first thought. What will happen if I put C after it? After a loss, relationship problem, school, grade, stress. So, what are the drastic times? Now, they've given you the examples of the drastic times. So, C very beautifully succeeds or follows option B. What will happen if I put A after it now? Anything can trigger depression, big or small. It depends on the person, situation, event that are happening within a person's life. Now, E very beautifully follows option A. So, I guess we've just got the answer. We did not try to rearrange anything. We just looked at the answer choices and we figured out the answer just like that. So, right, that's the answer. Now let's take a look at the next strategy. That is, try to find the passage opener or conclusive statements. Now see, it doesn't mean that you will not consider the first strategy. That is in play. That has to be there. So we will just read the options, the statements. We'll look at the answer choices while we will try to figure out the passage opener or conclusive statement or both. We will begin with the answer choices, not with the statements. We'll not try to rearrange anything. So let's just read the given sentences. For this reason. Well, what reason? I don't know what reason. So I know that A will not be a passage opener. So, okay, passage opener is probably sentence B. See, for those who lack self-confidence, every failure confirms a sense of incompetence. Well, looks good. So anybody who lacks self-confidence, every time this person fails, he'll feel, oh, I'm incompetent. I'm nothing. I'm worthless. So B is a good start. Now let's see. We have to figure out whether B will be followed by A or by D. Let's see. Let's begin with option A. So if I put A right after it, for those who lack self-confidence, every failure confirms a sense of incompetence. For this reason, a lack of self-awareness is an obstacle to realistic self-confidence. Now, see, in option B, we are talking about lack of self-confidence and a sense of incompetence. Now, suddenly in option A, we are talking about lack of self-awareness, which is an obstacle to realistic self-confidence. Doesn't really look so good. Let's see what D has to offer. The absence of self confidence can manifest itself in feelings of helplessness, powerlessness, and crippling self doubt. Now, let's see. Let's see if these two work together. So, we were talking about the people who lack self confidence, and every failure brings them closer to sense of incompetence. Now we are saying that if there is absence of self-confidence, how will it manifest? How will it show itself? Through the feelings of helplessness, powerlessness, and crippling self-doubt. Now you tell me, what do you think is a better choice here? Is it B or and A, or is it B or D? I guess you'll agree when I say that BD is a better answer choice. So if option B is a better answer choice, let's just put the rest of the parts and see where we get. So for those who lack self-confidence, every failure confirms a self of incompetence. Then D, the absence of self-confidence can manifest itself in feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, and crippling self-doubt. What will happen if I put C here now? Extreme self confidence, on the other hand, see, we are still talking about self confidence, looks good to me. Extreme self confidence, on the other hand, can look like arrogance, especially if a person lacks social skills. If I put E now, and self confidence is not to be confused with brashness. So we are still talking about self confidence here, the absence or the presence, whatever the case may be. To have a positive project, self confidence must be aligned with reality. For this reason, lack of self awareness is an obstacle to realistic self confidence. I believe B is a very good answer choice, and we found this without trying to rearrange. Now, what did we do? We tried to find C. We worked around the options and not the actual statements, and we tried to find a plausible passage opener. And according to me, the answer is B. Well, that's absolutely right. Looks like you're absolutely right. Now let's take a look at another strategy. Okay, find paired sentences. This one works like wonders. So works like a charm every time. Let's try to work this together. So I'll just read the option first. I'll keep the first two strategies in mind while I try to find the paired sentences as I work my way around the parajumble. So this says the general enemy of mankind, as people have discovered, is not science but war. Okay, that's a beautiful thought. That's your fixed start. It is found that when there is peace, science is constructive, and when there is war, science is perverted to destructive ends. Okay, we're still talking about science. Science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. Until now, they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. The weapons which science gives us do not necessarily create war. These make war increasingly more terrible. Our main problem, therefore, is not to curb science, but to stop war, to substitute law for force and international governments for anarchy in the relation between the nations. Now, see, as I've already marked this for you, do you see a relationship between the weapons and they here? So option D talked about the weapons which science has given us. And see, then we say they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. What does this they signify here? It talks about the weapons that science has given us. So that tells me that D and C are mandatory pair in the sequence D first and C later, right? And there's another mandatory pair in here, which is science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded, and it is found that whenever there is peace, science is constructive, and when there is war, science is perverted to destructive ends. So we have found the mandatory pairs in here. Now it will be easy for us to figure out the answer. Let's take a look at the answer choices and see which ones have the mandatory pair that we have figured out. So one is D first and C later. So, well, we have option B, which has D and C put together. That's it. There's only one option that talks about D and C and both B and A put together. Let's just see. Okay, I think we've got the answer. Now let's put the things together and see how well they work. See, I did not try to find anything else. My focus here was mainly the mandatory pairs, and that kind of led me to the answer because D and C and B and A are essential pairs. They're mandatory pairs. They're paired sentences. So let's put them together and see how well it works. So we say that the general enemy of mankind, as people have discovered, is not science but war. So they say that science is the general enemy of mankind. Then if I put B after it, Science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. Now, see, the subject of the sentence in the first one was science and not war. Now, we are only talking about science in option B, so looks good. So, they say that, okay, science is the general enemy, and then they say, what does science do? It merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. Then, if I put A, say, then they say, when there is peace, science is constructive. So, see, a is very beautifully elaborating option B, where they said that science reflects the social forces. So when there is peace, science is constructive. When there is war, science is destructive. So B and E complement each other. Now, if I put D, the weapons which science give us do not necessarily create war. They make war increasingly more terrible. Until now, they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. So this we have already discussed that D talks about weapons, which is a gift of science, and then C further talks about weapons when they say they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. Now, if I put C, and that is fixed part, our main problem, therefore, is not to curb science, but to stop war, to substitute law for force, and blah, blah, blah. So we know that the answer is B only by finding the mandatory pairs in the given parajumble. Now let's take a look at another strategy. Now, this one is pronouns follow nouns, and this one is pretty easy to understand and works very well, very well. So it will maybe help you identify the paired sentences, it will help you identify the passage opener, it will help you in so many different ways. And what are they? Just pronouns, and they help you so much in this kind of question. So this one is it's an open parajumble, as we can see. The US has been howling against its huge trade deficit with China. It's easy to challenge America's one-track argument. If so, then by logic of transitivity, rupee too is undervalued against the dollar. It says this because of an undervalued yuan. India already has a trade surplus with China. Does this mean that the rupee is undervalued against the yuan? Now see, the first pronoun structure I have highlighted for you. So we say the US has been howling against its huge trade deficit with China. It says this because it is of an undervalued yuan. Now see, it says. So first sentence is US has been howling. It has been saying something out loud. Okay. And then says it says. See, doesn't it naturally follow option A? It represents the US here. So um, A and D, one, they're mandatory pairs, and second, and how did I find that? Because it is the pronoun that I've used for the word the US here. So I can do one thing. I can try to look for the parts, the options which have A, D as mandatory pairs. So the first one doesn't have that. Number two doesn't have that. Number three has it. Number four, that is option D, has it. So we can probably eliminate A and D without a lot of thoughts. We know that the answer is, say, between C and D. Now let's see if we have anything else. Now see, till now I did not try to make sense. I did not try to do anything. I'm just trying to understand, use some strategies that have helped me till now. Let's see. Anything else that will help me. Now, India, like I'm reading option A, India already has a trade surplus with China. Does this mean that the rupee is undervalued against yuan? If so, then option C, with the logic of transitivity, rupee too is undervalued against the dollar. Now let's see, where is the answer? So the US has been howling against its huge trade deficit with China. It says this because of an undervalued yuan. Now, if I put B, it's easy to challenge America's one-track argument. Then B, it's I'm sorry. Then E. India already has a trade surplus with China. Does that mean India the rupee is undervalued against yuan? If so, C. C naturally follows E. Then by logic of transitivity, the Indian rupee too is undervalued against the dollar. And we found the answer. Now, students, with this, I come to the end of this session. I will be back with one more session where we will talk about some more, we'll practice some more parajumbles and we'll take a look at the type in answer type parajumble as well. And we'll do a lot of practice exercises based on those. So stay tuned. I'll be back soon. Practice a lot. Bye bye.